Hey, I wanted to take this opportunity to make a video and talk about how Olaf has gone from being a world's top tier jungler into right now being trash tier and not really being worth picking at all. And this has mostly a lot to do with the jungle changes, but it also has something to do with the mastery changes and how we now have a top lane tank meta. Olaf has only really good side lane ganks, and he's such an early game dependent jungler that you have to do something with him. You either gank the side lanes or you invade the opposing jungler. But if you do nothing with the Olaf, you will get outscaled almost by absolutely any other pick. So the tank meta makes it so that ganking top side is really almost never worth it because it's not a kill you can snowball from. Usually it wasn't very worth it to do early ganks on the top side, but now this is exacerbated to such a point where you will almost never gank top. You have very low kill pressure. You have no business getting snowball there because tank versus tank is not really a snowball matchup or something that you can get the other tank behind them and have them become useless, right? They will always have a lot of utility, and gold is not very useful for the tanks. So camping or getting some ganks going on the top lane is not as advantageous as it is, let's say, between if you are having a rumble kind of matchup or this sort of stuff where you can really take control of the matchup from top side. There's also the fact that because of the several jungle changes and no jungle fruit really being beneficial for Olaf, he is mostly worthless at this point. Before, you would use the Olaf to get a mid lane push, a bottom lane push, and take control of the opposing jungle, get wards, control the raids. This was the single most important part about Olaf as a jungler, was to take control of the wraiths, smite the wraith buff, and deny vision control from your enemy. With this vision advantage, you could deep ward his jungle without fear of the bottom side, without fear of them being able to have as good clears. You would have more dragon control, you would have the chance to, since Olaf is a very strong duelist, to maybe camp sometimes in their jungle, wait for them, clear them out, starve them out. This is no longer an option because, for starters, you simply don't get anything from smiting wraiths. You also have this explosive coconut now, which makes it much less appetizing to camp your enemy, because usually he can just get out of the camp and you will have much smaller chance of success in camping your enemy. And you also have the Krugs, which are harder to clear now, slower to clear, and this makes them way less rewarding as a counter jungle camp. Lastly, the other two jungle thingies, the honey fruit and the blue like cone of vision, are, they are not bad for Olaf because they are things that make you want to have strong river control, but the problem is they are not enough to keep Olaf in the meta, right? Because you have other junglers like Lee Sin or Rek'Sai, which also have very strong river control, they have mobility, they also have strong mid lane pressure. Now that we are seeing this huge amount of bans directed at the mid lane, the mid lane is always a very key point for almost any meta, but especially now, if you get like the LeBlanc or the Ryze passing through, you want to have a lot of pressure in the mid lane, which Olaf has not, and there really isn't enough reason to justify the pick, simply because you can get as good river control with safer and mobile junglers. You don't need to have this huge early game chunk of stats, strong guy that can outduel anyone, because a mobile champion can just take the honey fruit or deny it from you, or deny your blue cone of vision and get out. And there's nothing you can really do. And because of how the invades are not as worth, yeah, Olaf is pretty much out. The only way in which he can maybe get in would be having bottom lane ganks, but because of how the dragon control is of course very important, and you have the weakest tower on the bottom side, so you want to get a push and go for that first brick, you end up having this poke meta on the bottom lane, like poke push, and usually you don't have that many opportunities to gank, because if they are pushing against you, okay, maybe you can gank, but you are not even guaranteed to have that good of a gank assistance. Maybe you had to pick like a pushing bottom lane that cannot give you such assistance. Let's say you have a Karma, for example, and which is becoming a very relevant pick in the current meta. Suddenly you do nothing in any lane, your invades are absolutely worthless, and you're going to get outscaled by everyone. And if your team is the one who has the push, you are just useless in absolutely every way, because since you cannot get kills as easily as before, you cannot get ahead, and Olaf not being ahead makes it super hard for him to dive towers. He's just not tanky enough, and he doesn't have the tools. And so yeah, there's like this very niche situation in which you can pick him, and even then you will most likely Lee Sin is still super strong, and he already was strong into Olaf before. Like he's just trash tier at this point. There is no reason to pick him at all. Maybe you could argue that because you have always a tank in the top lane, and Olaf benefits from having another breezer in the team or another tank to split damage with, because he's kiteable. Yes, it is true that he has that new advantage, but he just has absolutely nothing to do in the early game. And if you do nothing with Olaf in the early game, you're doing nothing with Olaf, period. We are already seeing how Olaf being out, we're not seeing the consequences. We will see them in, I think, maybe in like now the Challenger series and so on, but we are seeing how river control is super important with the rise of both Rek'Sai and Lee Sin, which were admittedly were already very strong in the previous meta, but now they are like top tier absolute two best junglers in the meta. But we should also expect to see more sack and more Hecarim, especially after the Lee Sin nerf, because these are picks that, I mean, we will not see a lot of them in every match, but they are picks that really benefit from not having strong invaders in the opposing team, and especially the sack has a lot of mid lane presence. So yeah, I'm excited to see how these changes shift out the meta, especially once the better teams start having their games.